Hi, you're here with Mr. Canada. We're going to start looking at finding any percents from 100%. So sometimes these are referred to as percentage bubbles, but it's basically being able to find any amount broken up. So we're going to start with doing just percentages, and we'll bring in amounts at a later time. So first off, we're going to look at this little activity. So how are we going to get from 100% to each of these, right? So if there's one thing that we could do, maybe there's a couple different ways we can get there. We're going to look at kind of all the different ways depending on what we want to make, because we're going to use all these little broken up percentages again and again over the years as a way to do it without a calculator. So I'm going to start off and I'll do one of the trees, or one way, and then see if you can't fill in the rest. So how do we go, what do we have to multiply or divide by to go from 100% to 10%? Well, here we divide by 10. Similarly, from 10% to 1%, well, here we're just dividing by 10 again. Well, that's great. Let's look at the next row down. 50% to 5%? Well, here we just divide by 10. And then 5% to 0.5%, we're just dividing by 10 here because we're just moving the decimal point, right? Let's go down to the row down below. And lo and behold, it's the exact same. Divide by 10 and divide by 10. Okay? So, this specific percentage bubble only works if you set up where you do divide by 10 and divide by 2, right? But if you always do that, you could almost memorize this quite easily or be able to replicate it in any situation. So look at 100 divided by 2 is 50. 50 divided by 2 is 25. Same thing, 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. And 0.5 divided by 2 is 0.25, right? Because you could just get rid of the zeros if the decimals are confusing you. And 5% divided by 2.5, or say 50% divided by 25, right? Or divided by 2 is 25. So this is where we're actually going to start to use these, okay? These are finding the percent. So we want to represent 45% in parts. Well, we could do this a lot of different ways, okay? And this is actually when we're going to be using this for the next little while of this entire topic. So different ways that we could do this is, well, usually the easiest is 10% plus 10% plus 10% plus 10% plus 5%, right? Which we know that we could have actually saved ourselves some time and done 4 times by 10% plus 5%, right? So that's one that we could have done, or two. Another one we could have done is, just because we're adding together, doesn't mean we can't do 50% and then take away 5%. That's still 45%. So I guess what I'm getting to is there's lots of different ways. You could get down to 1%, and you could do 1%, and you could just times by 45, just like if you're doing a ratio problem. Find it down to one part, and then times by however many parts you want. So some people actually prefer the 1% method. I won't say that the 1% prefer it, but I think it's a funny joke. Anyways, 67% in parts. Lots of different ways. I'm not going to go through them all, but if we want 67, you can use what you have above, or you can just think, okay, what if you start to remember what ones you can actually easily have. I'm going to do 10%. Actually, yeah, we'll do 10% times 6, then plus 1% times by 7. I could have done 10% times 6 plus 5% plus 2%, right? I could have done 50% plus 5 times by 3 plus 2, right? Lots of different ways. So whichever way that makes the most sense to you. Or when we start actually filling values, which is the easiest to get. And this last one is 28.75. So I'm going to do 25% plus 1%. That's 26. Plus 1% is 27. Plus 1% is 28. So plus, and then I know I can do half of that 1%. And then I can actually do half of the 0.5% as well. Could have also done it as 25% plus 2.5%. Because if you already found what 25% was, then moving the decimal place once, it's not really hard. Then we could plus, we're at 27.5, so we can add 1%, and then we can add 0.25. And if you notice, we just, 3 of those, we just have to move the decimal place, right? So, that's kind of finding percentage bubbles.